Hey guys, you're welcome to another episode of Founders Connect. My name is Piggytech and I'm very passionate about growing people and growing businesses, and that's what I do on this channel. I have conversations with amazing entrepreneurs or operators in Africa about the businesses that they're building and how they're creating a lot of impact. Now, in today's episode of Founders Connect, we're having a conversation with the big energy Odun Eweniyi of Piggyvest, of FirstCheck, of Backdrop, of it's plenty, and we'll find out all of it in this episode. So stay with me, guys.
Welcome to my YouTube channel. I am Piggytech, a change maker, professional, and creative who is passionate about growing people and growing businesses. Like, comment, subscribe to my channel, and please always share my videos. It promises to always be impactful and insightful.
Hi Odun, how you doing?
I'm good. Hi.
I'm good. I've been wanting to have a conversation with you since I started Founders Connect. And then at first I was like, let me do a few more so that Odun will look to my area. And then when I eventually reached out, timing wasn't just right. Yeah. So I'm very excited to finally do this. Okay, cool. So I usually like to start my videos with just knowing about the person. So give me your background story, just from when you got into the world to just when you started the whole startup thing.
Okay, background story. Okay, well, I was born in Abeg, I guess. Both my parents are university professors, and so we kind of grew up in academia. I have 3 younger siblings.
So you're the first?
Yeah, I am. And so 1 brother, 2 sisters, just really amazing people. My parents kind of did a lot of hands-on parenting. So we had an awesome childhood. And then I went to secondary school, then I went to Covenant, and then I met my co-founders in Covenant.
How's Covenant like?
It was good. Net positive is how I put it.
This is your maybe most memorable experience in Covenant?
It's always connected to the people. I don't have standout experiences oh my God, one day I went to class and this huge thing happened. I had weird things where lecturers sent me out of class a lot. So that was not unique because it was just always happening. But for the most part, I think I met some of my lifelong friends there. I met my co-founders there. So like I said, net positive. And then I graduated, got my first job in a startup and just kind of took off from there.
Okay, cool. So tell us about the first job at the startup. Which startup did you work for at the time?
Right, so I think I graduated 2013, and that July, 2 weeks after, I just told my dad I was going to Lagos to go try to find something to do that period NYSC before going for my master's. And so I'd been coming back from a job interview. I lived in an estate with some family members, and as I was walking back from the interview, which went badly by the way, and Somto just reached out of a window, and Somto was like, "Hi, Odun, come inside." And I entered. I'm like, "What are you guys doing?" He said they're working on a startup, which probably was the first time I heard that word. And he said called Paroles. And Paroles was this discount loyalty card startup that they were doing where users would get 1 card and get discounts from a number of merchants. So he asked, did I want to join? And I was like, sure. And
what made you say yes?
I swear, I don't know. I don't have an answer to that. I don't know. It's very hard to say this is why. But I'd known Somto from Covenant.
So you guys were close friends of Covenant?
No, not close friends, just friends.
I know him.
Yeah, and I tried to join something he was doing in Covenant, but that didn't quite work out. So when he said join this one, I was like, cool. He was one of the most creative people I'd known in CE. So when he said, I was like, cool, I'll do it. And so I started with social media. And then as we went down the line, I took on a bit more responsibility. And in the middle of that, Somto had also started to build something called CV Flash. And what CV Flash did was allow people put together their CVs and then send it to employers.
And that was what became Push CV?
Yeah, because when he started doing CV Flash was his mini side project while we ran Paroles full time. And then one day we were having a conversation. We used to stay till late in the office. And he's like, the people have been asking him this CV thing. Can you start sending their CVs to employers for them? So he started to layer on another platform on top of CV Flash. And so I joined him I can rewrite CVs. I was pretty good creatively. And so started rewriting CVs, started tracking payments, and he was building the technical side.
Right.
And, that was
it was just the two of you at that time?
Yeah, just both of us. Side project again. Full-time job was like the paroles thing. And then we'd seen something on the internet around Lead Path, which was an accelerator launching, and something applied. Like, we didn't know. And then one day we got an email that said, come and pitch. Come and pitch Push CV. And we all we lived in Ogba. And so we all piled into AY's car and drove to Yaba to go pitch. The first time we met Mr. Olumide. And, Mr. Olumide asked us all these questions. And I remember we all sat in his office and he was like, what did you graduate with? What did you graduate with? And, what course did you do? What did you graduate with? So we answered all these questions. We finished pitching and we left. He asked us about valuation, but I think we're just like pulling answers out of our ass, honestly. And we went. And then we got an email saying that they were interested and, they wanted to kind of invest. And that's kind of how we became co-founders of Push CV and inadvertently started a tech company.
Interesting. So when you were talking about the story about Lead Path, you mentioned that there was AY already. So how did you go from you and Somto to the rest of you that now became co-founders?
So you remember I joined Paroles as a staff. So
Somto,
Josh, AY were co-founders of
Right.
And so I was working there, and so AY was the one that had a car, and all of us had to. He was with us. So he drove us there, and then we came back from that meeting after getting the mail, realizing we needed to structure a company. And at the time, so we just did. So we had Push CV and we started working on it, and that's literally how I became a founder in, I think it was March 2014, maybe like 8 months after I graduated.
Very interesting. And of course, you never went back to do any other interviews.
I actually didn't do any more interviews after that. But what happened was that as you run a startup, you realize that startups don't make much money in the beginning stages, and all of the money that we were making had to go right back in. And so I had to pick up doing things on the side, which is how I became a writer at TechAbout, a writer at TechPoint. I wrote as a Coco. It was a fun couple of years.
Interesting. So tell us how, you guys did Push CV, you guys got funding from Olumide, Lead Path, and then Piggyvest came about. So at what point did you know what, let's focus on Piggyvest versus, Push CV is not working? What was that transition like?
So there was something that we realized about ourselves early on, is that one, we loved what we're doing at Push CV, but as we had conversations, it became for us more than just the product and really concerning the people we were serving. So, serving people with Push CV, connecting people to employers, we realized, we actually are serving our own generation of people, and the problems go far, far beyond getting jobs for them. Right. And so we started to think of what else is going on, and we were this group of people. We were running a startup, but we thought we could do more than one thing at the same time, and so we had Push CV. And then we, after a while, Push CV was going really well. People were, we're doing pre-screening, so it was kind of unique at the time and different than what was available. So we started 500 dishes. That's a little while down the road. One of the interesting things about 500 dishes was the idea behind it was, all these people were getting jobs for. A lot of them have side hustles. A lot of people cook on the side. Some people are too busy to cook. How about we bring those people together? And it was really good. 500 dishes made it onto all these startups to watch list and things. And then we had this food festival. We actually had 2 food festivals, very well attended. But what became very clear was Nigeria is a logistical nightmare. And I don't even think that has changed. So then we had the wildest problems, in the beginning it was good. Then we started to realize when people cook for someone over the platform, there's that problem of disintermediating you, where they just connect over WhatsApp. That was one. But that one you could even solve for. The second thing was getting the food delivered. We partnered with courier companies, didn't quite work out. We got our own personal bikes, and the nightmare just didn't stop. At some point we realized that it was becoming a money sink.
Right.
And so naturally we had to bring it to a stop. And as we moved on, we were no, there's still more to be done there. And we started 99 staff. 99 staff was for outsourcing, and again, it started very, very well. But we built 99 staff on the premise of P2P like outsourcing. I'd outsource to you because I have like extra work. But P2P in Nigeria is also kind of like undeveloped because the chicken and egg thing. You need enough outsourcers to get enough outsourcees, and you need it the other way around as well. So 99 Staff was great in that we got one large corporate client. And so we didn't notice the chicken and egg problem early on. By the time the contract ended, it became clear that we hadn't developed the P2P aspect very well. And so that actually died too, because lessons, right? And then we had front desk, and then
you were just like trying out
we were like,
and all this while Push CV was still there.
Running, So, and like obviously like making enough to fund these experiments as well. So we like tried again with front desk, like again, because it was that same market of job seekers were doing like, you know, selling on Instagram and selling on Twitter, and there just was something there. We didn't quite know what. And so we tried again with front desk, and we tried again with household. And then by
That's
this
4
time,
companies I can count now.
and probably some that we didn't even name, right? And so we were really like, it was a fun team. Like there was ideas flying around, and we were young enough to like, you know, let's go for it. Yeah, and so, you know, but the slight negative effect of all of this experimentation is at some point your attention doesn't like focus as much on like the main thing. So in 2000 and all of these things were like 2014, 2015. 2015, we came up with this brilliant idea that was a growth hack for Push CV called the Elite Employee Quest, right? It was basically a competition nationally for young people to kind of enter. We had, I think, 5 stages, can't remember. But stage 1 was the basics. Stage 2 was like testing of your basic reasoning. Stage 4 was CV review. Stage 5 was specialist tests. I can't remember like the order. Either way, it was sharp. Basically, you know, you start from telling us your basics and like answering basic questions to doing quantitative verbal.
So your whole interview process.
Yes, and then we make sure your CV is fine, and then you do specialist tests supplied to us by employers. This actually went great, right? And it went like, we had like all of these like infographics in the papers, and we actually had employers reaching out like, I'll hire people from like this program. And you know, like people were signing up on Push CV. We went from like, I think we had like maybe 50K people to 600K people in like 4 weeks.
That's a huge jump.
Unemployment, right?
Yeah.
But what happens here is your CV writing service suddenly needs to be scaled up. And so we got some bridge funding to like run us through it, made it back very quickly because people were signing up, were reviewing CVs, had like a lot of interns, were very inexperienced, had a lot of interns, and you know, everything went well. The Elite Employee Quest went great. When it ended, we still had CV backlog, and you know, we continued to write and continue to make revenues. Of course, the bad decision we made was that after like the program ended, we didn't like lean back and say, how do we plan like hiring? You know, like there's interns. What do we do with them? And like, do we like do best performing people and all of that? We just kind of converted all interns to full staff. And upped their salary. So we went from a company of maybe 7 people to like 25 people, and without realizing, Elite Employee Quest money will run out. How are you going to sustain it? By the end of 2015, we were down to our last, I don't know, I think it was 1 million, 2 million naira. And we had to take like the most heartbreaking decision that we'd ever had to take, letting people go. And so that December, it was really tough for us. Everyone was home, and it was just really up in the air what 2016 was going to be. So before, like after Christmas, I think, we had sat with everyone and told them we would pay them like 3 months into the future, but we couldn't like guarantee employment moving forward. Heartbreaking. But it was all it was, and we went back to the bare bones of the team. And then December 31st, 2015 came. We were just on Twitter. This had happened. It was unclear what next year was going to be. And then we saw the tweet that, so Joshua saw that tweet of the lady who broke her wooden box. So she had saved 1,000 every day. And she had 365K, and it went viral. And everyone was, I want a wooden box, I want a wooden box. And Joshua and I had this little exchange on Twitter about like the personalization and the sustainability of digitizing a wooden box. And then he brought the tweet back to the group group chat, and we were like, oh, we should try it. I mean, we've been trying
we do
things.
experiments all the time.
We've been trying things, and so Somto decided, I'm going to build this. And so this was 31st of December, 2015. I think it was less than 2 weeks later, Somto had the MVP for Piggybank.ng.
He built it himself.
He built it himself. Like that's what he did. Somto built every single thing for us at that time on his own, like alone. So 2 weeks later, we had an MVP, and the journey of Piggybank.ng kind of just started from there.
Wow, that's a long road to get into.
Isn't it?
Yeah, that's amazing. So when you guys launched, what was the first year of Piggybank at that time? What was it like?
It was very fascinating because when we launched, like, again, we're these like young people, 22, 23, deciding, oh, we want to do this. Not a lot of research had gone into it. We just knew we wanted to do this. So when we built it, at that time, actually, Paystack had just launched, making it like a perfect time to do like daily, weekly, monthly savings. So Paystack was our first partner. And then, what do you know? We put it on Twitter, so it was now shared responsibilities, right? Somto was building, Joshua was answering the phones, I was doing the ops and the social media. And so we just put it out on Twitter, like, this is this thing. Josh did some direct sales by like sending the platform to all of those people who were selling Odun boxes. and then people started to kind of sign up. They started to sign up. But in the first month, we learned a lot of lessons like OTP and security and all of those things. So we realized, and the regulation that's needed to operate this kind of platform,
right.
That January 2016. So we did what we could. We took it offline to go back to like the drawing table. So we went back, built in security, built in permissions, decided who do we partner with to make sure that this is on the right side of the law. We got an MFB partnership again. At this point,
quick question before you continue. December 2015, you guys had say $1 million. More or less, it was broke. But January 2016, you had a new product and you needed to get all these partners. How did you guys go from, we're ending, this company that we're doing right now is not working, so we're having a new product
it was
and we had
working.
Everything to scale?
It was working. It continued. So we scaled it down, made sure that it could sustain some salaries,
right.
And then restarted operations. In the meantime, we had a new product that needed like all of these resources, so we redirected all spare resources to that new one,
right.
And just continued this really lean, extremely lean operation. Right, and so when we started like Piggyvest, Push TV was running, there was people running it. It was very bare bones team, but it was there. And then there was us on Piggyvest also on the side trying to make it work. So when Mr. Olumide was just like, what are you guys doing? And we, as usual, would explain to him. And I think that is one of the reasons why he's probably the best angel investor in the ecosystem, because I think his insane belief in people is probably why we're here. Because when we said we needed an MFB partner, we didn't know any MFBs. So he went out to get us MFB partners. We tried like bank meetings. None of it was working out because I actually do understand, because imagine the insanity of 3 kids coming to come and tell you, we're building this, you should partner with us. It's probably crazy.
Yeah.
So he went out, found us a partner, and then we're off the races in April 2016. And by April 2016, things had kind of stabilized. And so it was a good time to kind of start to experiment with it. So it was organic social media because there was just like no money. So there was a platform that we had built and we did not need to pay a CTO because there was something. And then there was free Twitter. And so we just kind of started.
Amazing. So what was the growth like between that April when you guys like finally started and say the next April, what was it like?
So Somto and Joshua and I sat down in the office one of these days when we were like tweeting from the official account and said that if we can get this thing to 1,000 users, like it would be amazing. We didn't get to 1,000 users in the first year. I think we stopped at like 700 registered.
In the first year?
Yeah, we didn't get to 1,000. It was 700, yeah, I remember around that, and maybe half of that active. But at the end of that year, we saved 21 million naira on the platform, and we made like it was like amazing. We actually published it like, hey, we saved 21 million naira on this platform, and basically this is validation. And so in 17, we're going harder. But it turns out that we weren't the only ones happy about that 21 million. Right? Everyone else was, because people on December 31st, 2016, who withdrew successfully, went straight to social media to go talk about like this new platform I saved, I got my interest, I've withdrawn successfully. And so the amount of progress that was made in 2016, and then the amount of progress that was made from December 31st, 2016 to January 1st, 2017, you could just like see the difference.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. What would you say was the biggest lesson that you learned in that first year of doing Piggyvest?
The biggest lesson I learned was that, like, and I suppose it was all there somehow, but that being a generalist is invaluable. Like, I was...
That's funny because that thing has been going around on Twitter in the last couple of days.
Elohor started it.
Yeah.
So I know it's from conversations, but like, it was the biggest lesson I learned, because everybody has these very specific skills, right? But in the early stage of like a startup, you need like just a little bit of everything. And operations is vague enough that it is literally a little bit of everything. And so it was from social media to like, managing partnerships, and to like talking to the microfinance partners, to figuring out like everything. And because I was always kind of a person who, when I was young, my mom said I lacked focus, like I could do many things. We later diagnosed it, but like it was kind of useful. I couldn't believe how much we achieved in that 1 year, just because we just hunkered down. And obviously we had the support of our wider team. And so it just became, okay, this might be something, and this is what we need to do it. And we needed to have those skills in-house. And so everybody kind of picked up whatever like they could and just...
That's amazing. What would you say was like between you, Josh, and Somto, you guys have done like a lot of different experiments. What would you say is like the glue, or like how do you guys do it? Move from one experiment to another experiment, and you still trust yourselves that, these things have not succeeded, but positive is okay. Piggyvest, we have an idea. Because a lot of people would start a company together, or start a product together, and it doesn't work, and they're like, maybe it's not meant for us to work together, and they'll move to another thing. But you guys have continued for this long.
I don't know. I don't think we actually had a choice. It's like you hitch your wagon to these people for the past like 3 years. You haven't gained, but you haven't lost. And I think that we often don't give enough attention to the fact that if you've not lost, there's still a journey to go. Somto is one of the smartest people I've ever met. Right? Joshua is one of the smartest people I've ever met. In addition to being smart, Joshua is also very empathetic. And so it's like we know each other very well enough. And it wasn't just the three of us. We started like as a wider at 7 for Push CV. When it was time to do Piggyvest, the three of us said, okay, we'll head this. But we still had the support of those 4 people till today. So Nonso, Terry, AY, IBK, we still all worked together.
How did you guys pick that it was going to be you 3 and then the other people supported?
I think it was just because we had all these side projects, and each side project kind of had front people that were like interested in it from the start. So it's not like, it was like it was our interest, and so we just kind of decided, since you started it and you've been working on it from when it was like a baby.
So just
probably, yeah. And so it's still like a big group of friends, right? And we've been working together for so long that I can tell, right, when we're struggling. It's radical transparency. I know Somto a lot. Somto knows me a lot. I know what he's capable of. And so I think that co-founding relationships go like extremely deep. And I don't even know how to codify it this is why I continued with them. I just knew it was right. I just knew that these were the right people to build with. And also to kind of because they're co-founder, you're doing life with them.
Yeah.
And so it's like these people, we work. We know each other. They are my friends when everything is down. Like when we're going through the worst things, they're probably the people we can just kind of sit and make really dark, fatal humor with. But also the set of people who the next morning I'm waking up and I'm happy to go to work with them. And so I think there is a lot of friendship and emotion that runs underneath the professional relationship, where at the end of the day, when the chips are down, these are the people I want in my corner. These are the people that will be in my corner. So we just keep moving, right? I imagine that there will be a natural stopping point, and I think as a founder, you'll know that too. But for now, we're not there yet.
That makes sense. So between December 2016 and now it's about 6 years, right? Or 5 years and some months.
Yeah.
So what has been the milestones that at every point you know that this has changed what Piggyvest is? Because for instance, when you thought we launched in January, then we launched back again in April, and then December 31st versus January 1st of the next year, something definitely changed. That was a milestone, right? What other milestones can you look back and say at this point it's completely changed who we thought we were?
Okay, so one day we woke up to a Linda Ikeji post that we didn't have anything to do with, and someone had saved ₦1 million on Piggyvest and then bought a car. That was huge. Again, we now have marketing money, so it's ooh, okay. It was this wild post that went. So that was the first time it was really in our faces. We are making real change, and that stayed with us since. I remember her name. I remember I'm okay, this person has done this. We didn't know she was on the platform, nothing, right? And the second time would be actually December 2016 when someone went on social media. Someone with a large platform, essentially endorsing the platform, right? So that was amazing too, because he did not know us. He just used it, was successful, and he just went. So those two things probably overshadow everything else. But I suppose another time would be the fundraising, the first fundraising. Before our seed round at Push TV, we'd raised before, but that raise was essentially we were being held in Mr. Olumide's hands. Okay, my people are raising, let me help them out. Yes. And so for Piggyvest was the first time we went to the market, and it was a journey. It was at some point we were just we're not raising again.
Tell me more about the fundraising experience.
So, so in 2017, all of the attention, Piggyvest started to grow. We got into Village Capital. So at that point, we started talking to investors, let's raise. This was still in the middle of VilCap, right? A lot of them were just nah, the banks are going to eat you for breakfast. Understandably, again, and literally no judgment. I fully got it. And then, we entered Village Capital, we progressed. We learned all these things in Village Capital around crafting your story, investor readiness. So the story of Piggyvest now is different than the one we told in 2016. And then, we won the Village Capital Peer Accelerator program and got $50,000 from Village Capital. And then it became Piggyvest is a thing.
Yeah.
And so we started talking to investors. The first investor we spoke to after that was pretty decent, but we just couldn't find an alignment. The second one, we hated the term sheet so much. It just did not feel right. And so we're just yeah, we're not doing it. The third investor, we progressed and then just never heard from them again. In all of these things, each of them was saying, here's a milestone I want you to reach, basically testing our progress. So Piggyvest was growing massively in 2017, but nobody was giving us money. The last investor we spoke to around September 2017, it just kind of was oh God, as in we did not hear again, radio silence. And so we went back okay, do we really want to raise? And it was just let's put it on hold and grow the platform. And then we just kind of went back to work. So December, January, December we started talking about a potential merger, right? And then we also
between Piggyvest
and another party.
Okay.
And then we decided against it ultimately in January 2018 that we wanted to continue to grow it independently. And we were okay. And then we got into Google Launchpad Accelerator. And we're yeah, there's progress. And in the middle of Google Launchpad, a set of angel investors kind of just reached out to us. They want to hear more about Piggyvest. And we had this breakfast meeting. I remember I was at Wheat Baker. Great breakfast.
It's you remember the food first.
I remember the food, and I remember the conversation being easy. I remember after it feeling I feel this is how who should be investing in your company and who shouldn't be. It was a proper fact-finding conversation, but they were asking hard-hitting questions, but it was easy.
Yeah.
And so after that, they were oh, we're investing. And we were like, oh, this is our valuation. And they didn't argue. They were just like, yeah, no, we see the potential. And that's literally how we went from 50K to adding 1 million to then, like, after that, securing that 1 million, we had one more investor conversation. Kola, I know. We've been trying to get Kola to invest in all of our ventures. So with Piggyvest and having 1 million and 50K like committed to us, we then went back to him. Ventures platform invested, and that round was closed. And again, we've been, we got a Village Capital funds in April of 2017, and then in the 2 weeks in March, the end of March, we got the remaining money, and that was how the seed round.
After spending months trying to raise.
And so that's kind of how we raised the seed round. But it's a milestone for me because it was the first time 3 of us we sat. Mr. Lumide wasn't there this time, and convinced people to give us $1 million. Like, and then another person to give us like tens of thousands of dollars, and it was just like, ooh, we could do this.
We've grown.
Yeah, and at that point, I remember also the metrics around the platform were about 55K users, and it was just like,
and that was
2018. This was like, I think, March, April, and Google had already believed in us, so it was just like, okay, so we're here now. We raised that, and then that was a big milestone. And then the next one was like 1 million users, and that was very hilarious because we didn't notice until much later. It crossed it. It was just like...
When was this?
I think we crossed 1 million. Okay, we ended 2018 with 100 and something. And then I think it was 2019. Actually, no, 2020. Beginning of 2020. COVID was about to hit. Like, it was around now we were reading about this strange disease like that was going around everywhere. And one day I refreshed the platform and I saw 1 million and I think 11,000 or something. And I was like, oh, guys, did you know we made such little out of it. It was a very standout memory, but also the way we kind of all just like, oh yeah, and went right back to work was also really cool. And so we now measure like our milestones by user testimonials. All of those things that people write about Piggyvest on social media. And I know people think it's cliche, but that's literally like all progress is to me. I love the user numbers, love the AUM numbers. Obviously that's what but every time someone says, I started my business, I'm a very sentimental, idealistic person. I like hearing, oh, this I saved here to move from this house to that house. Those are the milestones that are swimming around in my head now because Piggyvest is people, and just seeing the impact over 6 years, I don't know, like is
you don't believe it sometimes.
Yeah, you really kind of look back and everyone says you guys are doing great, and we like that. I'm not going to say we don't like hearing that we're doing great because it's not easy work, but validation comes mostly from the lives that we're able to affect, and it also kind of justifies the big time lows that we experience because the next day you get up because someone else is going to get their rent from this platform.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, I see your tweet a lot when you talk about, you can't imagine how many people work at Piggyvest now. And knowing that at some point you were doing so many things and now you have to delegate, just like give me a bit more insight into the experience of just building like a large team now.
I'm telling you, it's still an ongoing learning process. I can't say, oh, I'm an expert at it. I'm really not. But when we started in 2016, it was 3 people, of course, supported with our 4. So we've always had those people. And then we had our first customer support person. And we used to say, oh, no, there won't be a lot of customer service involved in this. There's a lot. And so we had the first customer support person. And then my sister came to work with us in customer support as well. And so we had those 2 people working. But it kept growing, and then we had to get more customer support people, and then more programmers, and then ops people, and then treasury, and then compliance. And honestly, we're just boots to the ground. That I looked up one day, Piggyvest had crossed 50 people, and then last year when we were doing the dinner thing, I requested a head count, and we were almost at 120, and I'm just
past 100.
Yeah, and it's that it in the financial sense where we're catering, we're paying payroll to this, but just the impact of it hitting you that, first of all, and it's not just that like the team is large, is that these people like quit other jobs, took pay cuts. Actually, in I remember one person that we hired who took a massive pay cut to join Piggyvest. And all of them joined us, and then they're like, okay, we're looking to you guys to kind of like guide the way, which honestly, when we started like in 2014, I don't think anybody looked like, oh, this is where we're going to end up. You know, you hear it, but it's really abstract. And then when you're living it, I don't know. It's a learning process for someone who like, you know, started from just like right out of school, not a lot of like work experience. And so you learn along the way. And we also like, we have people who are kind enough to like understand that we will make mistakes, and we have, but you know, they're still there. We have notoriously low staff turnover, which I actually take as a personal compliment. Like, thank you. No, because I think building a team is not easy, and I know with all the conversations that we've been having in the ecosystem, there's a lot of like dissatisfaction around like employer-employee relationships. So to have people who are sticking with you through like your big wins and your big mistakes, it's kind of like really gratifying.
Yeah, that's amazing. I have many questions. As you're talking, there remain a lot more questions. So when you're talking about milestones, I thought maybe you would talk about Abeg Acquisition being one of the milestones for Piggyvest.
I mean, it's a milestone for Piggytech, the group company. And I don't actually think I can take it as a milestone, considering the fact that it's a work in progress, and the people doing most of that work are the founders of Abeg, right? Dare, Louise, Patricia. They're the ones who, like, if you sat them down here, they'll probably be able to tell you how much of a milestone it is. But I know that they plugged into a particularly important part of our generic vision, right? Piggyvest is a savings platform, but over the past how many years, people have been like, I want to spend from my Piggyvest. But I know, we know, like, that bastardizes a savings platform. That doesn't work. Do you get? And we went back and forth on it, connecting cards to Flex, Naira, and all of that. But like at the end of the day, it's just not something that feels like it plugs into the vision of financial freedom. That being said, the plan is to provide access to financial services for our generation and the people coming after them. And when Abeg was brought to our attention, we thought it was a very unique way to do that. And so having a conversation with them accepting to work with us, I think is a big milestone, but I'm very wary of counting it as our big achievement because we didn't do it alone. You have to collaborate with other people, right? So I think that's their story to tell, but that's from our perspective, it's a big deal and it's a big part of the big vision, but we like that it's been executed by people who conceptualize the idea.
Yeah. At what point did it move from Piggyvest to Piggy, or when did Piggyvest become a subsidiary of Piggytech?
That's a very interesting question because it was barely perceptible. Like, it was just literally, we realized at the spending point that, like, look, you can't have spending within savings. It doesn't work. Historically, we've seen it a lot when, like, people who started with X financial services try to expand to, digital banking and all of those things. It's very hard. And we prefer to preserve the purity of, like, what we've built. And so when we had that conversation, it was mostly, we need to work with these guys. And we're like, Piggyvest is a registered company, but so is Piggytech. And we registered it, so like those two things, so people will not steal like the Piggy asset and things. So when we then decided to work with them, it was like, okay, perhaps it's time to utilize the, so it just kind of happened. We did not sit down and say, now we become a group. It was just like what made the most business sense and was the least I suppose abrasive for the general team. So.
And are there more companies on a Piggytech? It's not just Piggyvest and
There are.
Could you tell us about it?
I don't know. I feel like some of them are particularly obvious now, like Abeg. But again, it's just they're mostly run independently. So again, if you saw the pictures from the end of year dinner, you might have seen a few logos there.
It's the way you're answering the question, but you're also trying not to answer the question.
I'm. How do I put it? There are. there's Abeg, there's Buy Food, and there's others that we've not spoken about. There's Patronize, which you might have seen, but there's others that we've not spoken about publicly. But you just see logos added to the group backdrop. I think that's a nice thing. You know, it's not like big announcement just because everyone just continues doing their work.
That's amazing. So, I mean, you're not just doing Piggytech. There's Backdrop and there's FirstCheck. I'm particularly very interested in FirstCheck. So, like, how did you and Elohor sit down and say, yes, we want to fund startups led by women?
Okay, so I met Elohor, I think, in 2019 for the first time. She'd reached out to me because I think she just moved back, and she said, let's have coffee, and we did. And instead of talking about work, because she was starting Endeavor here, and it was like Endeavor Piggyvest, we just kind of went on a long conversation for like 2 hours around like the plight of women in tech, funding women in tech, and after that conversation, we resolved to work together like on funding women. 2019. In that conversation. But like it just kind of went. Right, because it was early 2019 and it just didn't happen. And then in 2020, we kind of just progressed. Like she built like Endeavor Nigeria from the ground up here, and I thought that was impressive. And she was in my my circle, but we hadn't really gone back to that conversation as much. We'd spoken about like Endeavor Piggyvest, but that underlying tone was still there. And then towards the end of 2020. I was in her house. I was holidaying in her house, as friends do. And at breakfast, we just started having that conversation again. And this time, there was, I guess there was a bit more like definition to it, because I think she'd given it a lot of thought, right? And she kept on talking about being the first check into women's companies. And then at the end of the conversation, I'm like, oh, I don't know what to call it. I was like, oh, you've said first check like 7 times in this conversation. You should probably call it first check. And then we talked more about it and decided to do it together. And I'm a female founder. Elohor has been an investor for a long time. And we think that both of us have this thing in common where I think women like deserve to be like funded and, you know, have the spotlight shown on them. And more than just deserve, I think they have the capability to. Like, there's like smart women everywhere, and everyone keeps pretending like they can't see them. You know, so we decided we're going to do something about it here as an experiment. And so over the next 2-3 months, we kept on going back and forth on what the structure should be. And in January 2021, we were like, okay, you know what? Let's announce so that we'll be accountable to that announcement. And that's how FirstCheck was born. Because before then, we bought the domain name and we just kept on going, how do we do this? How do we really launch this? What do we want to really do? And then for me, it just came right down to starting. And don't forget, like, we've been starting random things before. So I just like, basically told her, let's start. And so we started, and the structure just almost immediately became apparent. And I really credit Elohor, because this thing is, I'm a founder at my core, and becoming an investor, like, it's actually one that's very mission-driven and yet returns-driven. It's a balance that she's helped me strike. It left to me, you know, you can just like say, oh, female founder, keep them money. No, but like, we're returns-driven, we're quality-driven, and so bringing all those things together to give you what is FirstCheck now, and after 1 year, having run it and saying that like the experiment we set out to do was successful, and now we can go big, is really a credit to like how she was able to think, conceptualize, and then we had that conversation. And then, you know, it just went to life.
What this has been the biggest lesson as an investor now with FirstCheck?
Biggest lesson, and Elohor kept drumming this into my ear, is that like, just as you want the founders to be honest with you, you as an investor need to be honest with them. And that's just like, it's a quid pro quo thing, right? So people are, you know, coming on your pitch calls or applying and telling you all of these things about their like startup. When you are like speaking to them, or, you know, accepting to invest or rejecting like to invest, you need to be very candid about why it is. So we try as much as possible. You know, sometimes, you know, like, it's hard because like saying no is not the easiest thing, but we try to be extremely honest and extremely direct about like, this is where like it would be most comfortable. This is what we need to believe to invest. And this is why we're not investing now. But please, if you improve upon this and you think that we need to take another look, please come back. So that transparency, because as a founder, one of the different things is that you really, a lot of time when you make these decisions, the only people you have to justify it to are your co-founders. Now you're speaking to founders and telling them, this is my decision, but here's why, and hoping that like it's taken the right way. And so that putting yourself out there is actually a very big lesson.
What would you say? As I hear you talk, I'm just thinking, Odun has her hands in many things, right? And like you said at the beginning, you're a generalist. Would you say that's your biggest strength, or what makes it possible for you to have the bandwidth to accommodate not just the experiment you guys are running at Piggytech, but what you are doing with your friends at Backdrop, what you're doing with Elohor FirstCheck? There are probably other things that you want to experiment with that you've not announced yet. So, like, what makes it possible for you to be able to do all of these things? And I mean, a lot of them are succeeding, as we can see. So what's the secret?
The people. Like the people are it. Like, you know, when you're working with the right people, I think a lot of, whether you realize it or not, a lot of the burden is kind of lifted, right? So the thing that allows me to succeed at Piggyvest is like my head of legal, our head of treasury, our accounting, finance, like all of the. I mean, we've surrounded ourselves with some of the best people like the tech ecosystem has to offer. The head of engineering, my co-founders. Like I've always tried to tweet that, like, I'm literally held up by like a whole village that allows me to like spread. When I was growing up, it was my family. So it's like I have the propensity to do a lot of things. A lot of times, sometimes they fail, right? Sometimes they succeed. We see the successes, but the failures are there too. And in all of these things, it's still, Elohor is my co-founder at FirstCheck, and she makes me look really good. Like, we do like a lot of all this talking about things. You've seen her tweets. Yeah. The clarity of thought there is 100%. So imagine getting that daily. Like, my thoughts are so much clearer for working with her, or Sumto, or Josh. So Josh now is she's a people person. I suck at it. But see, Josh is really good at it. And that reflects back on me, which means that, like, when you see Piggyvest has great customer service, you know, a lot of times I'm the most obvious person. But Josh is the CMO. He's the reason Piggyvest has great customer service. Sometimes the person who built the platform. Like, I handle ops, and in that ops, as we've grown, I've also been able to hire the right team. The right team allows me to be able to spend my working hours doing what my working hours should be. They're holding their own end of it, and then me being able to use my free time for things I'm interested in. And so all of those things, and I suppose, like, you know, lots of coffee as well. But at the end of the day, I think surrounding yourself with the right people, the right friends, like a lot of the ideas I'll talk through with my friends, like, hey, this is what I'm thinking of doing. Before you know, you're having like this 2-hour conversation with the person who's helped you conceptualize the idea, and you move forward. So the people are holding you up. People are holding most generalists up. Clarity of thinking, you know, and because I'm talking to Elohor about it already, like it becomes clear what I need to go execute. Do you get? And so a lot of that thinking burden is also gone. So in when you like introspect that way, you realize that a lot of times, like, the people holding you up, maybe sometimes they're not that obvious, but they're there. And so the team, you know, in the early days, I couldn't actually do too many things at once because there was a lot of work. So you start to like branch out when you are able to
build a solid team for each of them.
Exactly. Like in FirstCheck, it's 2 people doing this thing together and making sure that it's going well. So where she can't, I'll carry it. When I can't, she'll carry it. And a lot of that goes on in all of these projects.
Yeah. You mentioned a lot about, you've done a lot of things that have failed. What would you say has been the biggest failure that it shook you and you're like, I'm not sure if I can go on, or if what I'm doing, like, I'm on the right path?
I think we already spoke about it. That was that day we had to let all those people go. That is, I'm very determined that never happens again. It stayed with me, and it stayed with me so far. And it plugged directly into when we started Piggyvest. We didn't hire until we absolutely had to. And then, like, very lean. Very, very extremely lean. And then you continue like that and make sure that there's no repetition in the roles. I mean, when we get more resources, like, I'm very happy to kind of like go crazy on the hiring. But right now, it's like there's a person who's doing this, and it's because we need them to be doing that. And so that lesson is still there. It's very, very much a part of our everyday lives. Myself, Josh, and Sonto. And before you hire anything, it's like really back and forth, especially when you're hiring senior roles, because you don't want to make a mistake on a senior role. So you have to go think deeply, what does the job description look like? How does this fit? Economically, what does this mean for the company? So that's the biggest one. That actually was very, I'm
traumatic.
Yeah, it was, because it's people's lives, right?
Yeah.
And, at that time, you're like, oh, I'm making the right decision for the company, but there's also people at the other end of that, and it just like never feels good. And so if it feels that bad for me, I can't imagine how they felt, knowing that December, and that was it.
Yeah, makes sense. My friend is asking, by the way, he says, does FirstCheck only invest in tech startups that were led by women?
So it's basically early stage investment, pre-seed, sometimes seed, in startups that are co-founded or founded by women.
It doesn't have to be...
No, it doesn't have to be like all women team, no. So there's a female co-founder, at least one, and it's clear that she's involved in the decision-making process.
Yeah, but does it have to be a tech-enabled startup?
Yes, it does have to be a tech-enabled startup.
Okay, so we were talking a bit about FirstCheck and investing. Since that 1 million plus raise, Piggytech, Piggyvest.
Oh, we've not raised.
Why? We have so much revenue to...
Oh, we have PTSD. So we have a lot of PTSD from the first raise, and we're very determined that the next raise be very, very right. So let's just leave it like
what are the things that you're looking for to say that this is the right time, or these are the
right numbers and the right, like, I suppose, the right like blend of circumstances. One might say we're almost there. So it's like the traction. See, fundraising is a very painful activity, right? If you can avoid it, I'd advise it. But and we thought okay, we've raised this. It was quite a lot of resources for us. We're very, very lean team, and we're able to make it stretch. So now we've been thinking, when is the right time, and what are the right blend of circumstances? Where do we want to be when next we fundraise? I think we're in a much stronger position now, so we might, yeah.
Okay, when people think about Odun, they think about you as a rock star, but a role model. You hear a lot of women in tech, even everybody in tech, just one of the people that a lot of people respect and they look up to is you, right? And it's not just the people who are already in tech, it's also people who are coming into tech. And we know you as the founder. Not a lot of people know you as the person. What about your person, if you could, what about you as a person would you like to distribute to all the women coming into tech?
The whole persona thing is very funny to me, because I really look at my Twitter account sometimes and I'm just ashamed of it. All I do is meme. There's there's a nice tech tweet interspersed with it, but it's really me laughing. And so I'm very fascinated and of course very flattered that all of these people think oh, there's something there. But it's been quite a journey, and I think that I'm very hopeful that I can continue to be myself. That's the only thing I can distribute to anybody. I enjoy myself, my company, my own thinking. I laugh at my own jokes. I like who I am, and I think that's people think it's an easy thing, but it's really not, because it did take a journey, right? And when I was growing up, my dad used to say something to us be you, the world will adjust. He used to say that, because a lot of times we were the different ones. Because of how we grew up, we were very different. We thought different, and so he used to tell us, "Don't just be you, the world will adjust." And for a while, I wasn't me. I was trying to fit in, and after a while, it just really gets exhausting. And I just decided, you know what? Perhaps maybe he was right, and let's try it out. So far, so good, right? There is a balance. There is a person who laughs in there. There's a person who's serious in there. There's a person who sometimes I tend to micromanage. There's a person who's overly direct sometimes. There's a person who is not always nice, but mostly kind. And so I think that if everyone just decided that, look, this is who I am. I'm very happy to unlearn the bad stuff, but I would also make these mistakes publicly. And so I think the thing you want to distribute to people is just kind of like that self-awareness. You're not perfect. You can't be perfect. So who are you? Where are you going? What do you want to be known for? Like, I always tell people, like, I don't think most people will call me nice. However, I think most people will call me kind when they know the difference between kind and nice. And I think most people will call me fair because I just really try to treat everybody the same way. And so all of that self-awareness of who I am, and not who the world wants me to be, who I am.
You know you are.
Yeah, exactly. This is who I was raised to be. This is how my parents taught me. This is who I am at my core. This is my journey. Where am I going? At the end of the day, want the motivation, all those testimonials are like a drug, right? I get that. And the journey is to continue to get those things coming, continue to make that impact. Like, where do you want to go? Where do you want to be? What are the things you want to be known for? I'm very passionate about things like that. That self-awareness, I think that everyone needs to get, so that external validation, really pales when you're thinking about your life as a whole. When your validation comes from inside, it does help when you're going out into the world, especially because people are always going to have an opinion about you. In tech, especially now, there is a lot of attention on this space.
Yeah.
Everybody has something to say about the other person. Everybody has something to say about what you're building. Everybody has something to say about your methodology. Just like we tell people, what's your company vision? As a person, you need to have that inside, that locus of control. Because if not, the world just moves you.
Locus of control.
Exactly. So for me, it's really internal, and I really credit my parents for that one. They just kind of created this really incredible home where we felt safe to be ourselves. And so when we're going outside, it was a bit easier for us to kind of go outside as who we were and not try to change it. I think it's very hard. Self-acceptance isn't, and I don't mean to preach, it's not, but it's just not the easiest thing. I know that. And so when you get to that place where you're like, this is what you get. It's easier. It just makes life more fun.
Yeah.
I really at some point, there was a time I was trying to do the serious founder, where you curate your Twitter. But it was not fun. I did not enjoy it. And so I stopped. You guys are going I used to write
me as I am.
You guys are going to take these memes and you're going to let me comment on things that sometimes don't have any relevance to tech.
Yeah.
I like Netflix shows. I like reality TV. All of these people make a person. All of these characters make a person, and that person is hopefully what people see, and that draws them. And hopefully that's what women will see to them. I mean, you can be yourself and still run these things.
Yeah. And that is my last question for women who are coming into tech now, either as operators or as founders. What's one thing you want them to know, especially if they're coming into tech in the Nigeria ecosystem?
The biggest thing that you can do is to first of all pick a path, right, and then stick to it. And we've already, there's so much knowledge out there already. I'd just send you to Elohor still to read. But for the most part, if you're coming into tech right now, there is so much space, right? The one thing is to dispel of the myth that there isn't enough space for women. There are. We're making it, others are making it, and that means that you can come in and you can have your own space, right? There's you. Who this Founders Connect has become a platform, and it's literally just real conversations. There's designers, there's people who are operators, there's product managers, and I think that the best thing that women who are coming to tech can do for themselves is educate themselves about the ecosystem. Where do you fit? Pick that line and just kind of stick with it. You can make it as anything in tech, because when we keep saying in tech, I think it's just in life, because everything has tech.
Right?
So
true.
So if you're coming into tech, be yourself, the whole self-awareness journey. And it's fine, you're not going to come fully formed. Be aware of that as well. Be open to lessons and just kind of enjoy the ride. We're not going to hamper ourselves by saying I'm a woman in tech. It's not easy. But also if you don't enjoy the journey, sometimes the destination is that journey, that whole thing. We're having this conversation because we've just kind of lived through it. And so I think when we're coming in with the weight that obviously there's the responsibility of holding the door open for the next set of women and all that, but also kind of enjoy it. We're at this cusp of something, maybe Web 3, maybe Web 4, I don't know. But there's something that's going to shift in the Nigerian and African tech ecosystem. It's my hope that there's more women there to take advantage of it, and more women there who are just there to kind of absorb that journey. It just feels I suppose, different for me when I started and now. Like, people ask you, what do you think of the ecosystem? It's exciting. Like it is. There's so much starting going on, and I want more women to just start. Whether as a founder or as an operator or as a designer, just
find something and start.
Yeah.
Find a path. I love it. Is there a question that you wanted me to ask you? You think I should have asked but I didn't?
No, I usually don't like to make work for myself.
Very nice. Okay, so I will just take that last one, which is just there's so much happening in tech. There's so much happening in Nigeria, tech ecosystem, and tech is life now. So just pick a path, start, and most importantly, enjoy it. Yeah, I think that's my favorite part. Just like life is hard already. Yeah, you might as well enjoy what you decide that you want to do with your life.
Like it's going to be hard. It's just going to be hard. So like mentally, like preparing for hardship is not that great. It's not
so just enjoy it. Yeah, amazing. Thank you so much for having this conversation with me. It was really. Just before you came, I was telling my friends that. I don't know what I'm going to ask Odun because I see Odun has kind of shared piece of our story everywhere. But then you share the story again, I'm like, wow, there's still so much.
I'm really surprised you guys are on board.
There's still so much to learn. It's like every time
we've told that like wooden box story so many times.
Yeah.
If you wake me up, I can tell you.
Yeah, but like every time you say it, maybe it's a different vibe. There's always just a renewing and
I'm very happy about
of what happened.
Usually because it's so simple. Because everyone thinks. Like the big ideas are like disruption, but like sometimes they're just not. Sometimes it's just like a digital color and you just kind of move with it.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for having this conversation. And guys, thank you so much for listening to this conversation. Make sure you like, subscribe, follow Odun, follow download Abeg, download Piggyvest, download Buy Food, all of them.
Please download. Thank you. I will download all of the above. It's a really interesting what's it called, ecosystem of products. Sometimes I should kill me if I don't plug the product. So please, use Piggyvest, use Abeg, use Patronize for your business, use Buy Food for your food,
use Bag Job for your travel. And if you're a female founder,
to FirstCheck.
Amazing. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure you don't leave this channel without subscribing. Peace out.